Hey there. So in this video, I'm going to quickly go over how to calculate a t-test in R. So before we get started, I'm going to load the UITK package. This just contains some data sets that's used for the Urban Informatics Toolkit, as well as the tidyverse. All right, so we're going to be working with this data set called Airbnb. It contains listings in Airbnb listings in Boston. It has the price, which is most notable, as well as the latitude, longitude, room type, neighborhood, and listing ID. So the first thing we want to do here is just try to look at the distribution of price. And to start there, we're going to utilize ggplot, and we're going to look at the price, the distribution of price. Geom density to get an idea of the density. So the first thing we see here that is there's a very, very extreme tail here all the way up to about $10,000. So what we're going to do is we're going to filter this data set to say, hey, let's have it under 2,500. We're still going to have a skewed data set, but this way it won't be nearly as skewed. So let's begin filtering. Geom, sorry, it's not Geom. Filter price is less than 2,500. Okay, and let's make this plot one more time. All right, so now we see some more of the shape of this density plot. And it looks like we still have places that are over 1,500, and it looks like just one or two. I'm going to make the executive decision just to filter below 1,500, just to, for sake of illustration. All right, here we go. Okie dokie. So what we're seeing here is that there are these little bumps in here. Maybe there are underlying distributions within this, right? So we have this variable, and now we want to begin asking ourselves, hey, does this price vary based on this room type, right? And if I'm going to look at this, Airbnb count room type. Okay, we see we have a bunch. We have over 3,500 observations, and only 56 of them fall into the categories of hotel room and shared room. So now what I want to do is actually I want to remove these, and I want to see, hey, is there a significant difference in the average price of the Airbnb listing based on private room or entire home or apartment? So let's just begin filtering this out. Let's say room type is in the vector of entire home / apartment and private room. Okay. So this is the distribution for all observations, right? So what happens if we break it out and say, hey, let's look at the distribution based on the room type. And let's just set this transparency to be about, I don't know, I like to do 1/3, so we can see some overlap. So now what we're seeing is, compared to the previous distribution, if we partition out these groups and we look at the distributions of each by their own group, we see that we might actually have a different distribution in there. And when we see something like this, when there's two different groups, and we think there might be a difference in the average price, that's a really, really good time to think about using a t-test. A t-test is going to compare the averages of a single continuous variable based on a binary variable, right? So here we have a binary variable because we have two options: room type, entire home and apartment, and private room. And we have price on our y-axis. Here we're seeing this is the density, but we're measuring price. So what we want to do is see, all right, well, is there actually a significant difference between the two of these? And what we can start to do is kind of get an intuition of that. So let's just, let's take this guy, call this B&B Filt. Now we have B&B Filt. And what we can do is let's just look at the averages of this and see how different they are, right? So we can say summarize average price equals mean price. You know, classic mistake, gotta save it. We want to group by room type. Okay, so now that we're seeing the average between each room type is wildly different. We see the entire home and apartment, the average price is 216, and then when we're looking at the private room, the average price is 86.5. But now what we want to do is we want to see, hey, is there a statistically significant difference between the two? Is this distribution just due to chance, right? Is it just because of the sample of data sets that we have that we're saying, hey, these averages are different? Or is it that, like, hey, is there some systematic difference between the two? So what we're going to do is we're going to start doing a t-test. And to do that, we're going to use the t.test function, t.test. And the formula, we're going to use the formula interface here. And it looks like y by x, or y by group, and data equals data frame. That's the formula interface. That's kind of how it looks. So in our case, we're interested in looking at the price by room type based on the BNB filt data set. So let's call this price test. Now, summary price test. That's not what I want. Price test. So now what we're going to see here is that we have a massive t value, t statistic, and we have the degrees of freedom and our p-value. And here it prints out those averages that we saw earlier up here when we did our summarization. So what this test is telling us is that, hey, we have a large t statistic and a very small p-value, and the averages for each group are right here. So the average for entire home and apartment is 216, and the average for private room is 86. And the t-test is saying, hey, this is most likely not due to random chance, right? There seems to be a systematic difference between these two groupings in their average price, right? I hope that was helpful.